I'm Wattchow, but everybody calls me Ponch. I've worked with people in the outdoors my whole adult life, and I'm fascinated by how we're connected to places through outdoor travel. I went back 50 years later to ride through the landscapes of my childhood holidays. My cycling mate Dave Axford and I rode our Kona cinder cones around the Yorke Peninsula in South Australia, hugging the coastline.
Absolutely fantastic.
In a big clockwise loop from the town of Ardrossan.
Now the Yorke Peninsula is here, down in South Australia. It's not Cape York Peninsula up in Queensland. It's a peninsula of land shaped like Italy, between St Vincent's Gulf and Spencer's Gulf.
We were roughly following the Walk the Yorke guide, a 500-kilometre walk and cycle route of rugged coastal scenery, wild beaches and beautiful small towns. We were in for some tough riding. As always, I was on the lookout for some good photos, a bit of history and a poem to help me reconnect with my past and the landscape we were riding through.
It's been quite a hard first couple of days for the ride. On the first day we did about 50 kilometres but into a raging headwind, and I gotta say I don't think I was well hydrated or prepared, so I suffered the consequences. We've been pushed out onto the Yorke Highway because the track was impassable for cyclists. Lots of traffic, not much shoulder. Well, at least we're off the highway and down on the old coast road. Old Ponch is battling a few cramps.
Day one and Ponch is struggling. How are you doing, Ponch?
Ponch doesn't know about how to balance his electrolytes. But we made it into Port Vincent and had a really pleasant night there.
Now that's the main street of Port Vincent. I drove my grandpa's EK Holden down it, quite illegally mind you, under his tutelage as a 12-year-old boy. I could barely see over the steering wheel. My grandfather was one of South Australia's first woodwork teachers and built his own caravan. I guess it was back in the 1940s. He and Grandma loved caravanning and never missed a school holidays taking their two girls, Estelle and Margaret, my mother and auntie, away camping. Estelle and Margaret kept the tradition alive, so my brother, sister and our cousins travelled far and wide. Maybe that's where I got my love of mountains and rocks from. But every autumn saw us back to the Yorke Peninsula at Port Vincent, our base for fishing and exploring.
Day two, we're out on the Port Vincent highway taking us down to Stansbury. The east side of the peninsula's got far more population and towns, so I actually just cycled past a bakery. Now we've ridden right down the bottom of the eastern side of the Yorke Peninsula and have started to work our way along the southern side of the great foot that the Yorke Peninsula forms. Well, we got ourselves off the bitumen and on a nice little secondary road, absolutely hugging the shoreline. And it's really quite remote and wild country. You know, I walk down on the beach here and you can't see much sign of anyone else being around. I have been very surprised at how windy it's been. It really hasn't dropped below about 15 to 25 knots in sailor's language. It's a really desolate campsite, so I better go and find a little nook and cranny amongst the limestone, try and get a bit of protection out of the wind and find a place to have a kip for the night. Well, once I got used to my rock, that was a pretty good night's sleep. Thanks, Rock.
And then we're inland there, then we hit the bay, and then we're inland again, and then we hit Fowles Bay.
But we'll see, it looks like maybe a lot of this scrub.
Mm-hmm.
Because the country's all limestone, it doesn't hold any water. So the paddocks are pretty bare. We've got a wedge-tail eagle coming at us, Axe. Must be harvesting season down here. Don't see that every day. Lucky it's a nice wide road. Turn the corner, Axe, heading north.
Yep. That's it.
Up the Corny Point and have a look around.
That'll be the road in Gleason's Landing there, I think.
Done a long inland stint, probably pushing over 30 degrees. Feels like a long day riding on the limit. I guess you just gotta keep pushing, just get there. Sunrise launch from, where are we, Axe?
Point Turton.
Sunrise launch from Point Turton. Forecast northerlies and hot. Bloody hot. About 10k out from Port Victoria. Headwind is pumping so up, we are pedalling downhill. He's grinding. Holy hell, mate. General store on the right. Now we made it to Port Victoria at 5 to 12. Thanks largely to Axe bullocking into the wind. The sun is starting to get warm.
They say the past is a foreign country, and so it proved when I went searching for the child of the man along the hard edge of the land, looking out to the blue rim of the ocean. Behind me, somewhere, in the broken limestone fields, they're still chasing bumper crops, which always seemed to belong to yesteryear. Harvests bagged and hauled to shallow ports, pushed to the end of those long jetties, hovering over blue and green water. Then load them onto the mosquito fleet, which took them to the deep hulls of the windjammers that sailed home, across the sea, far beyond the lights, away from the land of far horizons. But our dreams were always for the small towns, curios and keepsakes in the shop windows, crossing the white gravel roads in the old Holdens, suspensions built to ride the inevitable corrugations, which took us to intimate beaches, games on the sand, plump garfish and a bucket full of Tommy Ruffs from those same jetties, where it will always be autumn in the land of far horizons. Now for the man made from the child, the road seems longer, harder. Heat, flies and barely a patch of shade, always thirsty in that flat parched land. Taking rest in the shade of the old stone church, always a place of prayer and respite through the hard years of land clearing. Now amongst the ruins, they farm the wind that we ride through, along those same white roads, under the bright sun, where there's nothing other than to breathe and climb the long steady hill, to get to the other side, to find the road that takes us home, in our land of far horizons.
We're crossing back over the peninsula to get back to Ardrossan. Last day of the ride, Axe. Hasn't all been easy, mate, but there's been some good highlights. It's a nice little highlights reel. About to cycle past the South Australian icon, a legend, otherwise known as a Stobie pole. Hot sweet tea, the ultimate reviver. About 3 tablespoons of brown sugar. A nice little downhill run. Done that for a while. Here's the other side, X.
Yeah, there it is.
Made it back to the Gulf, mate.
The poet William Wordsworth wrote that the child is the father of the man. I'll never know how much my parents thought about the long-lasting effect of all those caravan holidays. Some links are obvious. A lifelong love of being outside, a career in outdoor education, and I'm still chasing all those fish. But other links are less so. The faith that you'll make it to the end of a hard day of riding. Taking pleasure in being part of wind and tide for a while, and accepting the great joyous fascination of the ever-changing landscape as you roll by with your wheels spinning. Now these are the greatest gifts of all.